It's Mountain Monday, and you know what to do. Breathe in. And out. And breathe in. And out. And I used a slightly different mountain this Monday because this is Jebel al-Lawz. It's the mountain that some people think is the biblical Mount Sinai. It doesn't matter. I just thought it was appropriate because it's Rosh Hashanah. It's the beginning of the Jewish New Year, one of the Jewish New Years. But it's the beginning of the high holy days, the beginning of the days of awe. During this period, for people who aren't quite sure, people know what Rosh Hashanah, they know Rosh Hashanah, they've heard of Yom Kippur, they don't quite know what it is. And it's the beginning and the end of a 10-day period that is supposed to be a period of, like, introspection and repentance. It's the official story, and I think this would make kind of a cool video game, is that it's a 10-day period where God, or, one of his minions, opens up the book of life, the book where people's, deeds are recorded, and if you don't make right the things you've done wrong during the past year, it gets marked on your permanent record. But if you atone for them either before or during this period, like, this is sort of your last chance to get in before it's a permanent blight on your record. And at this point, you probably realize that Jews have something of a different concept of sin than Christians do. And, a lot of people don't follow that. A lot of it's just an excuse to eat a whole lot on Rosh Hashanah and not eat very much on Yom Kippur. It's supposed to be a fast day. A lot of people don't do it, but some people who can't do it for medical reasons eat very simply. But I wanted to use this opportunity to talk about anger, because I've been talking about this a lot. A lot of people are walking around very angry. So angry, in fact, that they don't even recognize that they're angry, because something that you are all the time, people have trouble recognizing it because it just becomes a normal state of affairs. Also, there's a lot of people who, for various reasons, whether it's gender-related conditioning or whether it's because they identify as an intellectual and don't associate anger with intellectualism, they suppress anger to the point that, and conceal it, that they lose the ability to recognize it. And, this is important because that can really mess you up. If you're walking around angry and you don't know it, they've actually found that anger has physical impacts on the body. It can affect your cardiovascular system. It can affect your stomach, and it can affect your nervous system. It can, obviously impact your ability to think clearly. It's one of those things, like so many other substances or states, that a certain degree of it is okay. It can even be good for you, but too much, and it can harm you. And this is something that leaves me extremely concerned for a lot of people I have to encounter, because I'm one of those people, and this is not, remember I said a certain amount of anger can be healthy? I'm one of those people who can't stay mad for long. And when I was younger, that meant that I was taken advantage of a lot more than was healthy. Everybody gets duped. Everybody gives a certain person or people too many chances, sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. But I would do it all the time. I would give people the benefit of the doubt constantly, and it would just mean that they'd screw me over and stab me in the back over and over and over and over again. And it took some learning to recognize that some people are just not good to have in your life. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to even dislike them. You just have to recognize that they're not good for you. And it might not even be that the person is doing something bad. It's just they have a bad effect on you. Some people are, resoundingly negative and leave you feeling depressed. Other people are self-destructive and end up dragging you down with them. It can be a lot of different things. But something I've seen form, and it's partially the educational system. I hear from friends of mine who are parents, and I observe it in kids in my life, that there seems to be more and more this idea that you are supposed to be able to get along with everyone, and if you can't, there's something wrong with you. And this is just not the case in a great many circumstances. Sometimes people are just oil and water. They are too different. Sometimes they can work together, but it's got to be in measured doses. It's not somebody that you'd ever want to spend time with. And I've had people like that. I've had people that I've worked with who I understand are exceptionally good at what they do, and I can get along with in a professional setting. But if you ask me to hang out with them after hours, then they start into the things that I just can't handle. And there's no right or wrong. It's just I can't be around certain things. And one of the things I've realized I can't be around for various reasons is people who call everyone and everything stupid. I know there are a lot of, you're an idiot, that's idiotic, that's ridiculous, that's stupid, you're a moron, that guy's a moron, she's an idiot. I know this is a common practice, and I see it a lot in the media. I can't deal with that. And I'm not going to get into why, because people will use it to troll me. But there are personal reasons why that is not something I support. I've seen it, and I want to be clear, this isn't something to do with me. It's other people I've seen who that had a very bad effect on, because, I grew up, I wasn't the pretty girl. I wasn't the popular girl. I was the smart girl. And so feeling like I was an idiot was not something that I grew up having to worry about. And I'm very lucky that way, because when I got into television, the minute you go on camera, the minute you become anything in front of the camera, people assume you're dumb and superficial and shallow and egotistical and all that stuff. But I didn't have that growing up, so I had a certain resiliency where I knew most of the time that no matter how many times somebody called me stupid, I'm not stupid. I'm not an idiot. But there are other people I've seen who have been told repeatedly that they're dumb, that they're stupid, that they're in some way worthless their entire life, and they have internalized this. And so I am aware that calling people idiots and saying things are stupid is not a harmless activity. And it's not productive, and it doesn't show that someone is especially grown up when everything is just stupid, when everything is just idiotic. Like, what do you like? It shows a lot more maturity and a lot more critical thinking to say you support something, to say you like something, instead of just dumping on everything. Because very fewer people criticize someone being critical than the way people tear down the stuff people say they're gonna like. There's just something about modern people, and this was true. I remember growing up when it was a boy band phase, and New Kids on the Block was really big. I used to watch people just say to, people around me were really into it, and I sort of went along with it. It's like, yeah, they're pretty cool. I participated, and it was like, yeah, I like that song and this, that, and the next thing. But I wasn't like, it wasn't make or break for me. It wasn't the end of the world if somebody insulted the New Kids on the Block. But I remember watching older people insult this, thing, and they felt entitled to do it because it was a boy band thing. Like they were doing young people a favor for saying that, oh, it's junk. And yeah, you know what? It is junk. But most of the stuff aimed at youth is junk because young people they haven't developed the appreciation of nuance yet. So let them like it. It's fine to point out certain things that aren't so great. Even better, introduce people to things you think are better. But just dumping on things, just pointing out all the flaws in something. I mean, the other thing I remember was being in university, and I used to write fiction like nobody's business. I used to write stories all the time. And going to university destroyed that. I got it back to the point that I could write scripts and I could write dialogue. But I have not been able to write prose fiction and complete it since university. Because, I mean, in English literature courses, you rip apart Shakespeare, you rip apart Milton, you rip apart these, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. It's unrelenting. Everything's criticism. And instead of celebrating what makes these works great, it was all about, the privilege in it and the this and the that and the politics. And, I'm not saying that's not true, but, one of the things that was interesting about Shakespeare is within his life, he was not considered privileged within his time. He was always sharded on for knowing, no Latin and little Greek, that he couldn't possibly have written these great works of theater because, he wasn't from the upper classes. He was working class stock. And if you actually look at Shakespeare, that informs the work. He tends to put in sort of the noble commoner, whether it's the the porter in Macbeth or various characters like that. And I guess that's the personal thing of I've seen firsthand what too much criticism, what negativity can do. And you'll always know when you're around a group of creators who identify themselves as creators instead of critics. And I number myself among those. I create content. My career does not rise and fall being a critic. There has to be more than that for me. And the reason I do that is because when I'm around other creators, I enjoy it. It's a supportive environment. People talk about what they're doing. They help each other. They encourage each other. When you're around a bunch of critics, it's a whole bunch of people trying to be the smartest person in the room and putting everybody else down because they're insecure. And that doesn't mean that creators don't critique each other, that they don't tell each other when they think they're going down the wrong path or when they don't like something. It's that when people critique your work and they tell you this isn't my favorite thing or I like this, I didn't like this, if they're previously supportive, then they're not just trying to tear you down, and you listen to them more. And this is the thing I've been trying to talk about for, I guess, 2 weeks now, ever since the last Gamer's Guide came out. And trying to get the message across that, do you want to have these temporary moments of not being depressed because you're angry because you're able to rage at someone who bothered to make a video that you disagree with or write an article that you disagree with? Or do you want to be effective? Do you want to be productive? Do you actually want to enact positive change in the world? And if you just want to dump on everything, well, you're a troll. And trolls exist. You know, I'm not going to tell you to not be a troll, but accept that you are a troll. And do not complain when nobody listens to you. This is a difficult thing for me to talk about because of the whole specter of the tone argument. And I want to make it clear, I'm not talking about disregarding a valid point because you don't like the way someone said it. I am talking about the nasty, vicious little comments that lack any substance at all. They are just a personal attack, just saying something stupid, just saying something's insane, just insulting the person, instead of actually breaking it down and connecting to the material enough to effectively critique it. That doesn't happen enough. People use one line in a 15 to 30 minute video as a jumping off point for their own politicized stump speech. And that doesn't do any good, because I know, reading the comments, because I get a fair amount of comments, and when you think about it, like most of the videos I do get dozens of comments. Some get hundreds of comments. So I am reading hundreds of comments a week. I cannot waste my time on someone's rant where they have personalized something I've said and just reacted badly to it, or they have an agenda and they're just off to the races using a comment section to pontificate on the rightness of their viewpoint, and instead of getting their own YouTube channel and going through this slog and you know put it down, man. You think you got what it takes? Step up to the plate. Become that man in the arena. Instead of that, they just use other people's comment section because they know more people will see it that way. Or they will tweet something I said, twist it to make it about them so that, they get attention. Not for themselves. I'm not saying these people are, just narcissistic. They're so attached to one cause or another that they're evangelizing. And I don't like being involved in that. And part of that is, my particular, I'll say, belief system, because it's not just about religion, it's not just about faith, it's sort of everything I'm about. It's not about converting people. It's not, because I don't want to do that. I don't want to artificially change someone's mind. I want to provide the information. I want to say what I believe. And if it persuades someone, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. This is not a scored debate. It's not Oxford rules. The audience doesn't vote at the beginning and the end, and the person who changes the most mind wins. That's not what I'm doing here. All I'm trying to do is create thought-provoking content. That is all I've ever done my entire career. I try to make it entertaining enough and interesting enough that people can come here, take, a half an hour out of their lives, sometimes shorter. I'm working on being shorter, but just be challenged in a relatively safe way. Stimulate that gray matter, feel like you've gotten a bit of a mental and emotional workout without feeling like you're bowled over. That's all I'm trying to do. And when I get these people in the comments talking about fallacies and logical fallacies and straw man arguments and all this stuff, I don't even know how to contextualize it, because this isn't a debate. This is just me talking. This isn't, those fallacies are developed for, rhetoric courses. And you can't communicate in the modern world with people of various educational levels and very different backgrounds, meaning some people don't have that college education to know what a two-coke argument is and all that stuff. you have to talk to people at their level instead of talking down to people. And I always feel like that straw man, ad hominem, all these, reciting the fallacies. I always feel like that's talking down to people. Because if you walk into a church in a poor neighborhood, you will go crazy if you play the fallacy game. But those sermons help people. And so I'm not going to tell them they're wrong. I'm not going to tell them they're somehow intellectually inferior. I'm going to let them feel better for an hour a week. And I'm not going to change that. And I don't think I should have to. I think a big point of free speech is the right to disagree. And people who swarm comment sections trying to show about how right they are just based on, aggression and strength in numbers. That's not the way it works. That's just shouting someone down. And so I'm asking everyone, please, give me a break. Let me commune with this period and continue to work. Because I don't want to take 10 days off, but this is something that's important to me. It's a good point of introspection. Because the alternative is just don't read the comments or turn them off completely. And I don't want to do either of those things. I think, for all the crappy comments I get, there are people who comment decently and respectfully and make some very good points. And I don't want to lose that. So I'm asking everyone to respect your fellow commenters. Not because you have to. Not because there's going to be some penalty because you don't. But because it's that basic respect for other people, whether or not you believe a higher power is watching you. You don't have to believe in a god or gods to understand that greater good principles, that the common good has a purpose, and that giving people a place to discuss things away from the shouting has merit. There are a lot of places that you can go on the internet to scream and shout and call people names. I would appreciate it if you do not do that here. So this is me trying again because, it is the 10 days. I am giving it a shot. And so let's see how this week goes. We'll close off now. Breathe in. And out. And breathe in. And out.